Listen carefully. Because once you understand what I'm about to tell you, you'll stop wasting years of your life trying to solve a problem that was never yours to solve. Every man, at some point, finds himself standing in the quiet aftermath of another argument, staring at the woman he loves and thinking the same thought. Why is she always unhappy? You bring flowers. She says you forgot her favorite color. You plan a weekend trip. She complains the hotel isn't romantic enough. You stay home to help. You're smothering her. You work late to provide. You're emotionally distant. It's like living inside a maze that keeps rearranging itself. No matter which turn you take, you end up in the same place, her dissatisfaction. And here's the first truth that breaks the illusion. It's not about you. Her unhappiness existed long before you arrived. You simply became the nearest mirror, the easiest target for emotions she's been carrying since childhood. For years I didn't see that. I thought love meant fixing. I thought if I learned her language, anticipated her moods, stayed patient enough, gentle enough, masculine enough, I could unlock the version of her that would finally relax and smile. But the more I tried, the more miserable she became. Until one day it hit me, this wasn't chaos, it was a pattern. I had dated women from different cities, cultures, and worlds, and every story ended the same way. Initial passion, then creeping dissatisfaction, criticism, withdrawal. Different faces, same emotional script. That realization shattered me, and freed me. Because when patterns repeat across different people, they're not accidents. They're programs. Programs written deep in the female psyche, reinforced by family, society, and culture, that ensure chronic unhappiness no matter the external circumstances. Some of it is biological. Half of our temperament, optimism versus pessimism, contentment versus complaint, is genetic. And for a certain percentage of women, their brain chemistry leans toward seeing what's missing instead of what's there. It's not malice. It's wiring. You can spot this across generations. The grandmother who complained about everything, the mother who repeated the same cycle, and now the daughter, living in comfort yet drowning in discontent. They could win the lottery, marry Prince Charming, live in a palace, and still feel cheated. Because the brain finds what it's trained to find, and theirs was trained to find fault. But genetics are only the foundation. The deeper roots grow in childhood. Most unhappy women share one of two early experiences, sometimes both. The first is a broken bond with the father. Maybe he was absent, abusive, distant, or emotionally unavailable. She grows up with a silent resentment toward the masculine, a conviction that men will always disappoint her. So even when she meets a good man, her mind bends reality to confirm the belief. She'll test him, doubt him, provoke him, until he finally fails, and she can sigh, see, they're all the same. The second is the mirror effect, a mother steeped in her own unhappiness. A woman who complained about life, criticized her husband, never smiled unless something went her way. The daughter watches, absorbs, and imitates. To her, dissatisfaction becomes normal femininity. She doesn't know how to live without it, because peace feels foreign. Years later, in her own relationship, she finds herself repeating her mother's sentences word for word, feeling the same resentment she once pitied. And when her partner points it out, she swears she's nothing like her mother, because the program runs beneath awareness, invisible but absolute. Then there's the cultural programming, the fantasy every little girl grows up with. Fairy tale romances, social media perfection, endless validation. She's told she deserves the best, and if she doesn't have it, someone else is to blame. So when reality arrives, with bills, routine, imperfection, the gap between fantasy and life becomes unbearable. That gap is the true birthplace of her unhappiness. She thought love would heal the emptiness. She thought marriage would erase the insecurity. She thought success would silence the doubt. And when none of it does, she looks outward for the culprit, and you happen to be standing closest. You see, men keep trying to repair what they never damaged. They apologize for feelings they didn't cause. They compromise until they lose themselves. All in pursuit of something that cannot be given from the outside, contentment. Because here's the paradox. A woman cannot receive peace from a man if she doesn't have peace within herself. And until she faces the programs running her, the childhood scripts, the fantasies, the comparisons, no man alive will be enough. This is the first law of female dissatisfaction. It's not about romance, effort, or compatibility. It's about the unresolved war inside her own psyche. Every story of adult dissatisfaction begins in childhood. Not adulthood, not heartbreak, not feminism, childhood. That's where the emotional software is written. And most men never understand how deep those lines of code run inside the women they love. You see, when a little girl is born, her world is shaped by two emotional forces: her mother's moods and her father's presence. Those two elements become the blueprint for how she will love, how she will fight, and how she will perceive happiness. If her father was absent, she learns that men leave. If he was cold, she learns that love feels distant. If he was controlling, she learns that love feels suffocating. And if he was weak, she learns that love is disappointing. Every disappointment with a man later in life becomes a replay of that original wound, the silent cry of the little girl who never felt safe, seen, or protected. So when she complains that you don't listen, that you're distant, that you've changed, she's not just talking to you. She's talking to him, the father who couldn't meet her needs. But it's not just about fathers. It's also about mothers. A girl watches her mother not just for affection but for identity. She learns what being a woman looks like from her. So if the mother was constantly complaining, angry, disappointed with life, the daughter internalizes that state as normal femininity. She grows up believing that dissatisfaction is part of being a woman, that to be feminine is to suffer, to criticize, to endure, to never be satisfied. And here's the tragic irony: she might even resent her mother for it. She might promise herself she'll be different. But the subconscious doesn't care about promises. It cares about patterns. And the pattern repeats, silently, automatically, predictably. So now she's 30, sitting across from you, frowning at something you said, and she doesn't even realize she's channeling her mother's energy. Her tone, her sigh, her resentment, all inherited mannerisms from a lineage of women who never learned peace. Generational unhappiness is real. It's emotional DNA. You can change a country faster than you can change family programming. Because people rarely even see the program, they think it's personality. You might hear her say, "That's just who I am." But what she really means is, "That's who I was taught to be." Now combine that early pain with modern culture's message: "You deserve everything." And you get a generation of women torn between two identities. The broken little girl who never felt enough, and the adult woman told she's already perfect. That's a psychological paradox no one can live inside without breaking. Because if she's perfect, then her unhappiness must be someone else's fault. And who's the easiest target? You. So now you're not just her partner, you're her emotional punching bag, her therapist, her father substitute, her mirror, her proof that men disappoint. You'll notice that no matter what you do, she keeps moving the goalposts, because the goal isn't happiness. The goal is control. Control over the fear of being disappointed again. And control always destroys connection. She tests you not because she's cruel, but because she's terrified. She provokes you not because she hates you, but because she needs to confirm that you're the same as every man before you, that the world is consistent, even if it's painful. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar peace. I once knew a woman who picked fights every Sunday. Like clockwork. The relationship could be calm all week, but Sunday came and chaos had to happen. When I asked why, she had no idea. Later, she remembered that as a child, Sunday was the day her parents always fought. Subconsciously, she recreated that rhythm of pain because it felt like home. You see, most unhappy women aren't choosing misery, they're replaying it. It's not conscious sabotage, it's emotional muscle memory. And you, as a man, think logic can fix it. You think if you explain, reason, reassure, she'll finally calm down. But logic doesn't reach the part of her that's hurting. That part doesn't speak English. It speaks emotion, fear, and repetition. So she doesn't want the solution you're offering. She wants to feel the emotion she's used to, even if it's negative. It's the same reason people stay in toxic relationships, because chaos feels alive. Peace feels dead. So she keeps creating storms, mistaking them for passion, mistaking conflict for connection, mistaking emotional highs for love. And the saddest part? The more you try to bring stability, the more she resents you for it. Because stability reminds her of the emptiness she's been avoiding her whole life. When everything goes quiet, she has to face herself, and that's the one person she doesn't want to meet. That's why she picks at small things. That's why the tone of your voice, the way you breathe, the way you look at her, suddenly becomes a trigger. Because deep down, peace terrifies her more than pain. She doesn't realize that her unhappiness is self-created. That she's not reacting to you, she's reacting to the ghosts behind you. Every argument is a conversation with someone who isn't even in the room anymore. So she rewrites the narrative. You're not loving enough. You've changed. You don't care. But none of that's true. The truth is that her nervous system doesn't know how to live in peace, so it creates war. Men keep trying to win a battle that doesn't exist. You can't fight ghosts. You can't fix what you didn't break. Until she realizes that her unhappiness is her inheritance, not your fault, nothing changes. Until she understands that she's still fighting childhood battles in an adult body, every relationship becomes a reenactment, not a connection. That's why I say, most female unhappiness isn't new, it's recycled. It's history repeating itself through the same body, different name. And unless she breaks that pattern, unless she learns to face silence without panic, to stop seeking rescue from men and validation from misery, she'll never know peace. But what happens when childhood programming meets modern expectations? When the wounded child grows up in a world that keeps feeding her fantasies she can never reach? That's where the next stage of unhappiness begins, the illusion of the perfect life that always feels one step away. There's a quiet moment that happens in every relationship. It's not during the fights, or the passion, or the silence. It's when she looks around at her life, the man beside her, the house, the rhythm, the normalcy, and realizes it doesn't match the movie she's been watching in her head since she was a little girl. That moment is the birthplace of discontent. And it's happening to millions of women every single day. Because from the time she could walk, she was fed stories that reality could never compete with. Disney taught her that love means endless excitement, grand gestures, and perfect endings. Hollywood taught her that chemistry is constant, that men change overnight, that every emotion should feel cinematic. Social media finished the job, giving her thousands of filtered lives to compare hers against, 24 hours a day. Now, even when her life is good, her mind whispers, this isn't enough. That whisper grows louder with every scroll, every highlight reel, every post of someone else's vacation, proposal, or kitchen remodel. Her brain starts to code normal as failure, and fantasy as reality. And the gap between the two becomes a constant source of unhappiness. I knew a woman, let's call her Anna. She had everything she used to pray for. A husband who adored her, a stable home, a peaceful life. But 6 months into marriage, she was miserable. Why? Because she thought marriage would fix something inside her, that once she said, I do, the emptiness would vanish, the anxiety would dissolve, the happiness would appear automatically. When it didn't, she blamed the only variable she could see, him. He wasn't romantic enough. He wasn't ambitious enough. He wasn't exciting enough. Every fault she discovered in him was really a reflection of her disappointment with reality. She expected life to feel like the movies. Instead, it felt like real life, and that felt wrong. This is the modern curse. Women have been conditioned to chase emotional highs, not stability. They've been taught that if life feels ordinary, something's missing. But ordinary is where peace lives. Ordinary is where love matures. Ordinary is the soil where real happiness grows, but they've been programmed to see it as failure. So they chase constant novelty, new clothes, new experiences, new relationships, new goals, mistaking movement for meaning. But every chase ends the same way. Temporary excitement, followed by emptiness. Because when happiness depends on stimulation, peace will always feel like boredom. The expectation gap destroys gratitude. It blinds them to what they already have. Because how can you appreciate the man beside you when you're comparing him to a fantasy that doesn't exist? She'll see a friend's husband take her to Paris and feel cheated. She'll see another woman's boyfriend buy her a ring and feel unloved. She won't notice that the friend is miserable, or that the boyfriend is drowning in debt, because social media doesn't show context, only contrast. So she starts living not by reality, but by illusion, and illusion always disappoints. Now imagine this internal monologue running in the background of every thought she has. If he loved me more, he'd do more. If we had more money, I'd feel happier. If I looked like her, I'd finally feel confident. And every time she gets what she wants, the goalpost moves again. That's why she can have everything she asked for and still feel empty. Because the dissatisfaction isn't about what she has, it's about the meaning she attaches to it. And meaning built on comparison collapses as soon as someone else appears to have more. You'll see it happen slowly, the light fading, the criticism growing. She starts complaining not because you changed, but because her fantasy died. And she mourns it like a loss. But instead of grieving it, she blames you for killing it. Men rarely understand this stage. They think they did something wrong. They think they stopped being enough. But the truth is, they were never competing with other men. They were competing with an illusion, a highlight reel stitched together from fairy tales and filters. And here's the darkest part. Even women who get what they want, who marry the man of their dreams, who live the life others envy, still feel the emptiness. Because once they have it, the illusion loses its shine. It's what I call the devaluation mechanism, a psychological reflex where ownership kills desire. The moment she has something, it becomes ordinary, and the ordinary is intolerable to someone addicted to fantasy. So the boyfriend she adored becomes too predictable. The stability she once begged for becomes boring. The peace she claimed to want becomes emotional distance. It's not that he changed. It's that her perception did. She's chasing an emotion that only exists in the pursuit, not in the possession. And that's why so many modern women can't rest. They can't sit still in gratitude because their programming equates satisfaction with stagnation. They crave what they don't have and devalue what they do, a perpetual treadmill of longing and loss. Meanwhile, the man beside her is breaking himself trying to keep up, working harder, planning more, loving deeper, all to win a race she's running against herself. But he can't win, because she's not racing toward happiness. She's racing away from herself. That's the expectation gap, the invisible wall between fantasy and fulfillment. And until she learns to close it, nothing will ever feel enough. Because the truth no one tells you is this: happiness isn't found in getting more. It's found in wanting less. And that's the one thing modern culture never teaches women, that peace doesn't look like a fairy tale, it looks like gratitude. But gratitude requires maturity, and modern culture worships immaturity. It rewards envy, glorifies victimhood, and disguises emotional chaos as empowerment. So the cycle continues. The little girl raised on fairy tales becomes the woman who destroys real love chasing a fantasy. The woman who had everything becomes the one asking, "Why am I still unhappy?" And that's the question that haunts the modern feminine, not because life is cruel, but because her expectations were. There's a silent shift that happens in the mind of many women. It's rarely dramatic, rarely visible. It begins with a thought she doesn't even notice. Is this all there is? That single question begins to rot the foundation of everything she once adored. The same man who used to make her heart race now irritates her with every small habit. The same stability that once made her feel safe now feels suffocating. The same affection she once begged for now feels clingy, repetitive, uninspired. She tells herself he changed, that he's different now. But the truth is, her perception changed. This is the devaluation mechanism, the quiet virus that eats away at female happiness. It's not about you. It's not even about love. It's about the way her brain responds to familiarity. You see, women are wired, socially and biologically, to assign value based on anticipation. The unknown excites. The familiar dulls. Once she has something, it loses its shine. The pursuit gives her dopamine. Possession drains it. That's why she was obsessed with getting your attention in the beginning. Why she dressed up, laughed at your jokes, texted back instantly, and studied your moods like a science. The chase gave her meaning. It made her feel powerful, desirable, alive. But once you chose her, once the chase ended, the meaning disappeared. The validation she used to earn is now automatic, guaranteed. And what's guaranteed stops feeling valuable. It's not because she's cruel, it's because she's addicted to emotional novelty. And novelty fades the moment commitment begins. This is why many women confuse stability with boredom. Their minds were never trained to appreciate peace. They were trained to crave intensity. So when love becomes calm, they assume something's wrong. You'll notice this shift in small ways first. She stops appreciating small gestures. She stops saying thank you. She starts comparing, to friends, to movies, to her own fantasy of how it should feel. Every act of love becomes an expectation, not a gift. And the man beside her starts to feel invisible. He senses the distance and tries harder. He plans more dates, brings more gifts, works longer hours, compliments more. But each act only accelerates the devaluation, because effort from a man she already owns doesn't impress her. It's seen as proof of weakness. You see, the paradox of the devaluation mechanism is cruel. The more effort you give to regain her affection, the less she respects you for giving it. She tells herself she wants a romantic man, but she despises the man who tries too hard to please her. Because deep down, what she craves isn't love, it's polarity. And polarity requires distance, not desperation. She can't desire a man she feels she controls. She can't respect a man who revolves around her moods. And she can't feel grateful for something she believes she deserves by default. That's why the same woman who begged for attention will pull away once she gets it. Why she fantasizes about the past, or other men, or other lives. Not because she wants them, but because her brain misses the thrill of pursuit. I've seen it happen countless times. A man gives everything, loyalty, consistency, devotion, and she feels nothing. Then another man, distant, unpredictable, unavailable, texts her twice and she's hooked. Why? Because unpredictability reactivates her nervous system. It recreates the emotional chaos she mistakes for passion. That's the tragedy. Many women can't tell the difference between being in love and being emotionally triggered. They confuse anxiety with attraction, and calmness with apathy. So she keeps chasing the highs, and destroying everything stable in the process. When she's with a man who gives her peace, she grows restless. When she's with a man who gives her chaos, she feels alive, until the chaos burns her out. Then she starts the cycle again. New man, same pattern. New hope, same outcome. And when she looks back, she'll say, men always change. But what really changed was her own ability to feel satisfaction. Because once she gets what she wants, her brain labels it as mine, and mine loses its magic. She moves the goalpost again. More romance, more success, more excitement, but each new achievement fades just as quickly. Like a drug tolerance, her need for stimulation keeps increasing while her capacity for gratitude keeps shrinking. Social media amplifies this beyond imagination. She's constantly exposed to curated perfection. Couples laughing in Bali, proposals on mountaintops, boyfriends buying designer bags, and suddenly, her perfectly good life feels small. Her mind can't process that what she's seeing is fiction. It only knows comparison, and comparison kills contentment. That's why she could be lying in bed next to a man who truly loves her, scrolling through her phone, and feel miserable. Because her brain is wired to see what's missing, not what's present. And yet, the devaluation doesn't stop there. It extends beyond men, to everything. The job she once dreamed of becomes a burden. The home she once adored feels outdated. The body she once celebrated becomes a source of insecurity. She's constantly chasing more, not realizing that the chase itself is what makes her empty. The cruel irony is that women like this don't hate men, they hate the feeling of stillness. Stillness forces self-reflection. And self-reflection reveals the truth they're running from. That their unhappiness isn't caused by the world around them, but by the stories inside them. Men try to fix it by giving more, by loving harder. But love given to someone addicted to dissatisfaction doesn't heal, it fuels the addiction. Because now she has more to devalue. Until a woman learns to appreciate, everything she touches will lose its worth. No man can fill the void of someone who turns gratitude into boredom. So the question becomes, if she's always devaluing what she has, what keeps her so unhappy even after she replaces it? The answer lies in comparison, the invisible poison that convinces her that everyone else is living the life she deserves. There was a time when a woman compared herself only to her sister, her neighbor, or the few people in her small circle. Now she compares herself to everyone on earth. Every scroll, every story, every filtered photo becomes a reminder that someone else is living the life she was supposed to have. Someone thinner. Someone richer. Someone adored. Someone happier. And in that silent comparison, her peace dies one pixel at a time. You see, social media didn't just change how women communicate, it changed how they feel about themselves. It turned ordinary contentment into a disease called not enough. Every morning she wakes up to a feed that says, "Your house isn't stylish enough. Your body isn't perfect enough. Your relationship isn't romantic enough. Your life isn't exciting enough." Even if she's doing fine, even if she's loved and safe, her brain doesn't register security, it registers deficiency. The algorithm understands her better than she understands herself. It feeds her what keeps her scrolling: envy, outrage, desire. It amplifies her insecurities, then sells her the cure. New skincare for the flaw she didn't notice until yesterday. New vacation destination to fix the boredom she didn't feel until someone else posted about it. New boyfriend goals to replace the man who suddenly seems inadequate next to a stranger's highlight reel. And this is the heart of the comparison trap. She's not living her life anymore, she's performing it. Her worth is measured by the reflection she sees on her screen. Her happiness becomes public property, dependent on how others perceive it. I once knew a woman who used to tell me, "I'm happy with my life." She meant it. She glowed with peace. Then she downloaded Instagram. Within a year, she started hating her job, doubting her marriage, and obsessing over things she never cared about before. She didn't become unhappy because her life changed. She became unhappy because her reference point did. That's the tragedy. Happiness is relative. And in a world where she's constantly exposed to exaggerated perfection, her good enough starts feeling like failure. Now imagine living inside that mindset. Everywhere she looks, someone has what she doesn't. Someone's husband is more romantic. Someone's home is bigger. Someone's vacation is longer. Someone's engagement ring is shinier. So what does her mind do? It starts building a story that she's been cheated by life, that she deserves more, that her man is failing, that her choices were mistakes. She stops seeing reality. She starts seeing loss. She stops being grateful for what is, and mourns what never existed. That's why comparison doesn't just destroy peace, it rewires morality. Because once she believes life owes her more, everything becomes justifiable. The resentment, the affairs, the divorce, the destruction. She'll call it self-love. She'll call it choosing herself. But deep down, it's not self-love, it's self-envy. A hunger for validation so deep she's willing to burn stability to taste it. And the cruelest part? She doesn't even enjoy the things she wins. The envy resets instantly. She gets the house, the bag, the attention, and within days, she's scrolling again, comparing again, craving again. Because envy isn't about wanting what others have. It's about never being satisfied with what you have. And that's why so many women are miserable in the age of abundance. They have more comfort, safety, freedom, and opportunity than any generation in history, yet they feel more deprived than ever. The constant exposure to better kills appreciation for enough. When you believe happiness is always one purchase, one follower, one man away, you stop being capable of peace. And here's what men don't realize. They often become the projection screen for all that envy. She compares you to other husbands, to fictional characters, to idealized exes, to the perfect men online who never forget anniversaries, never lose patience, never fail. You become the embodiment of her disappointment with the fantasy. So she nitpicks, she criticizes, she complains. Not because you're failing, but because she's addicted to contrast. Your stability feels dull compared to the dopamine hit of imagining better. You can't win against imagination. Because imagination is infinite, and you're human. That's why men feel like no matter what they do, it's never enough, because in her mind, there's always someone doing it better. And this is the silent killer of modern relationships. Excess exposure. Too many images, too many stories, too many illusions. Her brain isn't built to process thousands of social comparisons a day, and each one erodes her contentment like acid on stone. But envy doesn't just destroy her happiness, it destroys her authenticity. Because envy forces her to perform instead of live. She has to prove she's winning, prove she's happy, prove she's better. So she posts curated smiles, captioned gratitude, choreographed perfection, while dying inside. That's why the women who look the happiest online are often the most miserable offline. Because the performance has replaced the person. Envy, comparison, fantasy, they're all forms of emotional hunger. And like hunger, they grow when they're fed. The more she compares, the less satisfied she becomes. The less satisfied she becomes, the more she compares. It's an infinite loop that eats her peace from the inside out. And eventually, she looks at her life and thinks, something's missing. But nothing's missing, it's just buried under layers of unrealistic expectation. You can't love a woman out of that cycle. You can't convince her she has enough when her entire world is designed to remind her she doesn't. Until she disconnects, until she detoxes from the illusion of better, she'll never see what's already good. The tragedy is that most never do. They trade real happiness for the appearance of happiness, and don't realize it until it's too late. But envy doesn't just live in screens. It grows in relationships, too, especially when a woman believes she's the prize, and the man is replaceable. That's where we go next. Because once envy combines with ego, unhappiness becomes an identity. There's a subtle arrogance embedded in modern womanhood. It wasn't born out of malice, it was born out of ideology. A belief system that told women for decades, you are the prize. You are the standard. You are never wrong. It sounds empowering. It feels righteous. But like every half-truth, it carries poison in its sweetness. Because when you convince an entire generation that they are perfect, you also convince them that everyone else, especially men, must be inferior. And when someone believes they are superior, happiness becomes impossible. You can't connect with someone you secretly look down on. You can't respect someone you see as beneath you. And you can't love someone you refuse to see as equal. This is the superiority illusion, the modern feminine ego that disguises insecurity as confidence and control as empowerment. It tells women that men exist to serve, to worship, to provide. That men should be grateful for attention, loyal without reciprocation, devoted without being needed. It's entitlement wrapped in empowerment. I once met a woman who said, completely serious, men are dogs. Then she wondered why she couldn't find love. How can you find intimacy with someone you dehumanize? How can you respect someone you secretly believe is built only to serve you? But that's what many women have been taught, that men are emotionally stunted, that masculinity is toxic, that male desires are shameful, that female emotion is superior. It's psychological warfare masked as social progress. They were told, don't depend on men. But dependence isn't the enemy, disconnection is. Because independence without interdependence becomes loneliness. They were told, you deserve everything. But when you believe you deserve everything, nothing feels valuable. They were told, you are the prize. But when you believe you're the prize, you start seeing everyone else as contestants. Relationships become competitions, not connections. She's not asking, are we compatible? She's asking, am I winning? Winning means being more loved, more admired, more desired, more envied. But relationships aren't supposed to be scoreboards, they're supposed to be sanctuaries. This mindset infects everything. It's why she tests you instead of trusts you, why she competes instead of cooperates, Why she craves dominance but despises leadership. Because her ego won't allow surrender. She confuses surrender with submission, cooperation with weakness, humility with loss. So she wages silent wars against the man who's supposed to be her ally. And that's the irony. She says she wants a strong man, but her ego can't coexist with one. Because a strong man forces her to confront her own fragility, and nothing terrifies her more than self-awareness. That's why she subconsciously sabotages healthy dynamics. If he leads, he's controlling. If he follows, he's weak. If he challenges her, he's abusive. If he agrees, he's boring. No matter what he does, her ego must remain superior. Because to admit fault, to acknowledge imperfection, to say, maybe I'm wrong, would shatter the entire narrative she's built around herself. She's been told she's the main character, the goddess, the queen. But queens without humility end up alone in their castles, surrounded by mirrors, wondering why no one stays. Men feel this energy instantly. It's in her tone, her attitude, her subtle contempt. She treats him like a project, not a person. She sees his love as an obligation, not a choice. And slowly he stops trying. Because no man can thrive where he isn't respected. Then she uses his withdrawal as proof that men are weak, never realizing that her own pride killed the connection. It's a loop that repeats endlessly. Disrespect, withdrawal, resentment, validation through victimhood, repeat. You'll notice this pattern everywhere. Women who claim to be independent, but spend their lives chasing validation from the very men they claim to despise. Women who demand chivalry yet reject reciprocity. Women who call themselves strong yet crumble the moment they're ignored. That's the paradox of ego. The louder it screams strength, the weaker it truly feels. Because ego is always armor. And behind every superiority complex lies an inferiority wound, a voice that whispers, I'm not enough. That's what the ego is trying to drown out. By judging men, by competing with women, by chasing validation, she's trying to escape her own reflection. But you can't heal by dominating others. You heal by facing yourself. And that's what most unhappy women never do. They've built identities around their wounds. Victimhood has become personality. They bond with other women through complaint, not growth. They form communities that feed bitterness instead of wisdom. You've probably seen it, the echo chambers of resentment online, thousands of women applauding each other for hating men, for cutting off negativity, for choosing peace, yet they all sound angry, all the time. Because it's not peace they've chosen, it's superiority disguised as healing. The result? A generation of women emotionally starved in a sea of affirmation. They get likes but no love, validation but no fulfillment, attention but no peace. And deep down, they know something's wrong. They just don't know how to admit it. Because to admit it would mean surrendering the illusion of control, and the ego would rather die than surrender. The superiority illusion has created a feminine identity that can't coexist with genuine happiness. Because happiness requires humility. It requires gratitude, vulnerability, imperfection. And those are the exact qualities the modern feminine ego rejects. So instead of happiness, it chooses validation. Instead of connection, it chooses competition. Instead of love, it chooses control. But control kills love. And that's why she ends up lonely, bitter, scrolling through her phone at midnight, convincing herself she's winning, while feeling emptier than ever. The truth is, happiness and ego can't live in the same heart. And as long as women are taught to build their identity on superiority, they'll keep mistaking isolation for empowerment. But ego isn't the final stage of unhappiness. There's something even deeper, something more tragic. Because once superiority fails to satisfy, the modern woman turns to performance. She hides her emptiness behind masks. And that's where the next layer begins. The performance trap, where authenticity dies, and the illusion of happiness becomes her only survival strategy. If you want to understand the final stage of female unhappiness, you have to understand performance, the art of pretending everything's fine while slowly decaying inside. It begins innocently. She learns early that approval is survival. That being likable gets her attention, and attention feels like love. So she becomes whoever she needs to be: sweet, charming, agreeable, seductive, confident, whatever the moment demands. By adulthood, the mask isn't just something she wears. It's who she's become. She laughs when she's miserable. She posts self-love quotes while hating her reflection. She says she's independent while secretly terrified of being alone. Every piece of her life becomes performance art, curated, polished, rehearsed. And men fall for the act, because the performance is flawless. At first, she's everything you could imagine: soft but strong, playful but deep, feminine but mysterious. She says all the right things, mirrors your energy, makes you feel understood. You think you've met the one. But what you've met isn't her. You've met her projection, the mask she built to be chosen. You see, many women don't enter relationships as themselves. They enter as what they think men want. And when the mask is eventually too heavy to hold, the truth begins to leak out. She stops pretending to enjoy the things she never liked. She stops acting easygoing when she's actually controlling. She stops hiding the resentment that's been building for years. And the man, confused, asks, "What happened to the woman I fell in love with?" The answer is simple. She never existed. She was a performance. A carefully engineered illusion designed to attract approval. But here's the twist: the more she performs, the more she resents the person she's performing for. Because pretending to be perfect is exhausting. She begins to hate the man for believing in her mask, as if it's his fault for not seeing through it. It's an emotional paradox. She hides to be loved, then resents being loved for the version she hid behind. This is why so many relationships collapse under the weight of authenticity. Because when the mask comes off, both people realize they've been in love with characters, not humans. And the performance trap goes deeper than romance. It infiltrates every part of her existence. She performs for her friends, because vulnerability might invite judgment. She performs for social media, because validation is oxygen. She performs at work, pretending ambition fulfills her when she feels empty. She performs femininity itself, not because it brings joy, but because without it, she fears invisibility. But you can't fake happiness forever. The mask begins to crack. And when it does, it reveals something horrifying. She no longer knows who she really is. Ask her what she wants, and she'll list what society told her to want. Ask her what she values, and she'll repeat slogans she's memorized. Ask her who she is without attention, and she falls silent. Because attention has become identity. And when attention fades, she feels like she's disappearing. That's why modern women chase validation like oxygen. Through selfies, through likes, through relationships, through drama. Not because they're vain, but because validation is the only proof they exist. But the problem is, validation doesn't heal emptiness. It amplifies it. The more she performs, the less she feels. The more she's seen, the less she's known. The louder she shouts, the more invisible she becomes. I once knew a woman who said, "I feel like everyone knows me, but no one actually knows me." That's the cost of the performance, being visible but unseen. And over time, the act becomes unbearable. She starts breaking down in private, crying for no reason, feeling anxious without understanding why. Because every time she says, "I'm fine," a small part of her soul dies for lying. But the world keeps rewarding the lie. She posts a picture with a fake smile, and 100 people comment, "You look so happy." And in that moment, she feels a flicker of relief, a hit of validation strong enough to numb the pain, but never to cure it. She's addicted to the illusion of happiness. She doesn't need to be happy, she just needs to look happy enough to convince herself she's not broken. That's why you see women posting about empowerment right after a breakup. It's not strength, it's survival. The performance gives her the illusion of control in a life that feels like it's falling apart. But the truth is, performance is the final symptom of emotional decay. Because when authenticity dies, happiness dies with it. And what's left is an endless loop of pretending, performing, and collapsing. Many men see this and think she's manipulative. But in reality, she's terrified. She's spent her entire life being everything for everyone, and now, she has no idea how to be herself. The saddest part is that even therapy culture reinforces this. It tells her to find her truth, but not to face it. It tells her she's perfect, not that she's lost. So she learns to talk about healing while avoiding it, to wear self-awareness like another mask. And that's why she stays stuck, because you can't heal while you're still performing. Healing requires honesty, and honesty requires dropping the act. But dropping the act would mean confronting the one thing she's been running from, herself. She'd have to face the loneliness, the envy, the insecurity, the emptiness. She'd have to admit that the men she blames, the world she criticizes, the life she resents, were never the real problem. The real problem was that she forgot who she is beneath all the masks. And that realization is so painful that most women never reach it. They keep performing until the act becomes their personality, until the lie feels safer than the truth. So they smile while dying inside. They post happiness quotes while scrolling through envy. They talk about peace while living in chaos. And they call it empowerment, because it sounds better than what it really is, despair dressed as strength. But there's one last stage, darker than all the rest, when unhappiness stops being a phase or a mask and becomes identity itself. When being miserable feels more familiar than joy. When she stops even wanting happiness, because unhappiness has become home. That's the final stage. And that's where we go next. There comes a point where unhappiness stops being an emotion and becomes an identity. It's no longer something she feels, it's who she is. By this stage, the performance isn't even conscious anymore. The sadness, the anger, the dissatisfaction, they've become her default frequency. She doesn't know how to exist without them. If peace ever shows up, it feels foreign, like silence in a room that used to echo. She wakes up irritated, goes to sleep restless, finds fault in everything. She's not even reacting to the world anymore, she's reacting to her own reflection in it. Every situation becomes a mirror confirming the same story. Men disappoint me. Life is unfair. No one understands. It's always me who gives the most. She wears those beliefs like a uniform, the armor that protects her from vulnerability, but also imprisons her in misery. And here's the cruel irony. Unhappiness gives her meaning. It gives her something to talk about, something to bond over, something to post about. It becomes her brand, her identity, her narrative. Because if she stops being unhappy, who is she then? The human mind clings to what's familiar, even if it hurts. And for many women, unhappiness is the most familiar thing in the world. They watched their mothers complain, their grandmothers suffer, their friends dramatize every problem. Happiness was never modeled. Only endurance was. So they confuse misery with depth, drama with passion, pain with proof that they're really feeling. I once heard a woman say, "I don't trust happiness. Every time things are good, something bad happens." That's the conditioning speaking, the nervous system trained to find safety only in chaos. So when life finally gets calm, she panics. When her man stops arguing, she picks a fight. When the relationship feels stable, she invents a problem. Because peace feels like a setup, and her mind needs something to struggle against. She's addicted to resistance. Without it, she doesn't feel alive. And this is the point where she starts sabotaging everything good. Not because she wants to, but because she doesn't know any other way to be. The mind always returns to what's familiar, even if it's toxic. It's not about logic anymore, it's about identity preservation. If she spent her entire life being the victim, she can't afford to heal, because healing would kill the identity she's built. If she stops complaining, she loses connection with the people who validate her misery. If she finds peace, she loses the only story that's kept her company all these years. That's why so many women resist happiness even when it's handed to them. They say they want it, but happiness requires change, and change threatens the comfort of suffering. You can tell when she's reached this stage. Her words sound the same no matter the situation. Every man she dates ends the same way. Every friendship dissolves over drama. Every job drains her energy. Every plan never works out. Different settings, same movie. She's not living life anymore, she's replaying it. And if you try to help, you become part of the script. If you comfort her, she'll say you don't understand. If you give advice, you're patronizing. If you pull away, you're cold. If you stay, you're weak. Because the story needs conflict to survive, and you're just another character in her drama. Men who stay with women like this often lose themselves completely. They start believing they're the problem, that they're not enough, that maybe if they just fix one more thing, she'll finally smile. But they don't realize, they're trying to heal someone who finds identity in pain. And the moment she feels content, she'll unconsciously destroy it to return to what feels familiar: misery. You can't make someone happy who's emotionally loyal to their suffering. And this is the dark truth few men ever accept. You cannot love an unhappy woman into peace. You cannot outgive her emptiness, outwork her resentment, outheal her past. Because she doesn't want peace as much as she wants control, and unhappiness gives her that. When she's unhappy, she's the center of attention. When she's the victim, she's untouchable. When she's suffering, she's righteous. It's power disguised as pain. But here's the tragedy: deep down, she's exhausted. No one chooses misery consciously. She's just too afraid to let go of it. Because letting go would mean starting over, rebuilding her identity from silence, from humility, from accountability. And the ego would rather stay broken than be reborn. That's why true healing rarely happens until she loses everything: the relationship, the validation, the illusion of control. Only then, when the performance fails and the audience disappears, does she finally face herself. Some women do reach that point. They collapse, not as victims, but as humans. And in that collapse, something miraculous happens: honesty. They stop blaming, stop pretending, stop performing. They sit in the emptiness they've been running from and finally ask, "What if it was me all along?" That's the moment transformation begins. Because happiness isn't something found, it's something uncovered once you stop hiding from yourself. But until that moment comes, she'll stay trapped, smiling for photos, posting fake gratitude, talking about healing while bleeding inside. And the cycle will keep spinning, generation after generation, until someone decides to face the silence and break the pattern. So if you're a man watching this, remember, her unhappiness is not your fault. It's not your burden. It's not your mission to fix. You can love her, but you can't save her. You can support her, but you can't heal her. And the moment you try to be the antidote to someone addicted to pain, you'll become her next poison. The truth no one tells you is this: you are not here to rescue a woman from her own unhappiness. You're here to protect your peace, to guard your soul, and to recognize that her journey is her responsibility. Because the bucket you're trying to fill has no bottom, and the longer you keep pouring, the more of yourself you'll lose. And once you understand that, you stop trying to fix her. You stop apologizing for existing. You stop chasing peace in someone who thrives on chaos. You start reclaiming yourself. And that's where your happiness begins. Not when she changes, but when you finally realize you never caused her pain, and you can finally stop trying to heal what was never yours to carry. That's the truth no one tells you. That's why so many women are always unhappy. Not because of you, but because they've forgotten how to be whole on their own.